phone. Jeez Louise.
You are
Hello.
live.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to your weekly pulse check with Dr. Dale. And yes, we have some amazing guests with us here today. We have the lovely stars Tina and the wonderful Mindy. You guys know Mindy. She was here before with the Women's Leadership Roundtable back in April, I believe.
Mhm.
And we're back again for some juicy topics. So today it's a day of celebration, of commemorating, remembering where we came from, where we are going, and it's just going up from here, right? It's just going up. So as I usually start, I always like to say, you are in the right place, doing the right thing with the right people at the right time, right? So, welcome to this week's weekly pulse check with Dr. Dale. We're going to talk about the title today is History Trauma Today because it happened back then, history. It came with some extra stuff, trauma,
Mhm.
and it's still happening. It's still reoccurring in other ways, in another shape or form today, right? So I'm gonna jump right in. We already gave you guys the welcome, and I'm gonna let the two lovely ladies introduce themselves and let you guys know who they are, so that way we can get this show on the road. So
Dale, before we jump in, you said a word and I wrote it down. And I'm wondering if we want to say celebrate. Do we want to celebrate Juneteenth? I know you said you're coming in hot. I'm just like, do we want to celebrate it? I
we want
love
to
the
celebrate, we want to commemorate, we want to remember all of
I don't
that.
want to celebrate it though.
Well, Tina, we're gonna get there. Tina, we're gonna get
Just saying.
there.
Anyway, intro like you said. I am Tina. Hello, hello, Dale. Thank you so much for having me through. Also known as Stars Tina. I am a coach. Life and health are the main things that I focus on. I'm a fitness guru. Fitness is my passion and my foundation. But then that foundation started to grow. Now my foundation is trauma and tragedy. Put those together. What do we have? Traumedy. That is my specialty. I'm an expert at this. I work with women that are over 40. This is what I specialize in. I can work with anyone. God is tugging me towards children these days, so I'm kind of like in a chokehold of where do I go. But when it comes to traumedy, all things, I can do that. I turn things from horrible to good to just kind of reframe and seeing how things work. So I'm super excited about today's conversation. Throwing it over to Mindy.
Thank you, Tina. That was a great introduction. So, I am Mindy Staley, and I'm an art teacher here in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm also dipping into the coaching field and merging it with creativity and helping women find some creative outlets so that they can discover their flow. So, what I do merges really nicely with what Tina does because it encompasses the whole body. I like how the camera did that. That was really good, effective. And then also merging with what Dr. Dale does, that aspect of emotional health and making sure that you as a woman are working in your flow and meeting all your needs and being the best possible version of yourself that you can possibly be.
Oh my goodness. See, you guys are probably looking like, what is Dale doing now? Why does she have Mindy here? She don't know what she's talking about. So, you guys know conventional, normal. That's not what I do. That's not, if you guys have been watching me for a minute, that's just not the case. So, at the end of the day, education, right? And education is not only through your eyes, right? It's through others' eyes, their perspective, their point of view. So that way your horizon that's like this can open up just a little bit more, right? And that's why Mindy is here. And on top of that, she's a teacher, right? So she's coming from an educative standpoint, right? And what is actually going on where she is and how she is helping with that conversation with her high school students, right? So in case you guys didn't know, everybody, so I know that sometimes when I found out about Juneteenth, it was just when it was when they legally put it into play a couple years ago with Biden, 2021, I think it was 2022.
I
That's when
think
I
what
learned
sparked
about
it was
it.
probably the George Floyd situation during COVID.
Yes,
That's when
that
I
sparked
remember
it.
it.
That's what pushed it. The Black Lives Matter, all of that stuff. That's when I, your girl here, found out about it. What about you guys?
Definitely. I was in Texas at the time, actually, and I actually did an event for Juneteenth, a virtual yoga whole thing about Juneteenth, because I was like, I can't believe I didn't know it. So, yes, that is when I found out. I was shocked. And then there's a movie out. I don't remember the name of the movie. Common is in it. Has it, any, either one of you seen the movie with Common? It was literally in the 70s. People were still
I
enslaved. They
heard
didn't know it.
about it.
It's
I
good.
heard
It's
about
really
it.
good. It's good.
What about you, Mindy?
I'm involved with an organization that does college tours, and they predominantly do college tours of HBCU schools in the South. And I've been involved with them for about 25 years, collegevisitationcharities.org. And they visit historical locations. We've been to lots of HBCUs and then to plantations. And we've done a lot of historical education, like you were talking about. And so there's a tree at Hampton University in Virginia where I think Lincoln gave a speech, and that during the course of those college tours, I've been doing them for so long, I can't remember, but I learned about it during that, where um, they took us on a tour of the school and told us about all those things, and they were explaining how the dissemination of information took a long time to get to the South, and so at that point under that tree, that's when those slaves heard, and then um, other people learned after that. And so it just like by the time everyone heard, it was called Juneteenth. That's where I learned about it on the college tours, and I really appreciate the way that that director Nelson Copeland gave that schooling to kids because they're not learning it with our textbook history. And so me as an educator started to really question what was being taught in schools and why people didn't know about um, battles and events and the way things were playing out in our own country. Or this is our own country history. So that's how I learned about it.
Well, you are one of the lucky bunch because a lot of myself and a lot of my peers and coworkers and we didn't know. And I took history class in high school and in middle school, and I didn't
Wow.
know,
Pause. Pause right
they
there for a hot second, Dale, because you just hit
yeah.
something. I don't know if you realized it. It's not in our books when we were younger. And I was told, I don't look at the news, but they're trying to take certain things out of history books now. So can you imagine what children 10, 20, 30 years from now are going to think their history is if we didn't even know about? Wow.
Which
Yeah,
brings
and
us
I
back to the word awareness. If we don't continue to talk about it, then what happens? Then nobody's going to hear about it. It's not in the books. Nobody, nowhere in the newspaper. They can't read about it. Then what happens? That part of history gets lost, or it gets put somewhere that nobody can see, so nobody knows, right? So a quick rundown for those that don't know. In 1863, President Abraham Lincoln, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, right? And this pretty much was an executive order, which pretty much declared all of the slaves no longer slaves, they're free, right?
mm-hmm.
He set them free. 1863, very important date. Um, but not until 2 years and a half, which I saw a lot of social media postings, but they somehow, even on the social media postings that I saw today, that part was not included, which pissed me off a little bit, right? Because there we go, picking and choosing what part of history we want to create or we want to mention. 2 years and a half, not until 1865, hence June 19th, marks the day when Gordon Granger, Union leader, marched over to Galveston, Texas, with the federal troops and announced that the Civil War had ended and that enslaved individuals were no longer to be enslaved, that they're now free. And do you know he had to? There's when I was watching this, another another YouTube where they did the whole history, where this gentleman went to Galveston, Texas, and he went to each one of the different places where these slaves were, the churches where they worshipped, where they were held in trees that were there, that they were, lynched on, like all of this stuff. And the lady said the soldiers did not come there to inform the slave owners that they were free. They came there to enforce, because they didn't want to free them. And even some of them, still left them on a little bit until harvest was over, and they stopped picking certain parts of the fields and whatnot. So with that being said, we're still today, to some degree, picking and choosing what part of history we want to include. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Tina mentioned earlier about the word that you chose, the celebration word. But I do think that without a specific event, even today in 2024, that people aren't aware. And I think that both of you, Dr. Dale and Starsina, that you in your practices really emphasize that self-awareness. So to be aware of where you live, what's happening in your country is so important. And so without these events, whether they're commemorative events or celebrations or whatever happens, they need to happen until it becomes streamlined, because you're right, it's that perspective is left out even in some places today.
Devil's advocate. Someone says, why do we need to know about this? This was the past, like it's over. Why are we bringing it up? Why are we doing these celebrations? What's the purpose of it? What would you say to that person? I don't agree to this. I'm hearing someone watching us right now. Why are they talking about this? It's over. It's the past.
I'll say I'll say what the lady, so the story was, right, this lady that she's an attorney, and she has a huge organization over there in Galveston, Texas, and her family became the cornerstone of a lot of the civil rights over there in Texas. And she spoke about how her great grandfather had 10 children, and he lived, him and his, so the mother, the wife and the husband of the great grandfather, they did not live, or were not owned by the same slave owner. They were owned by two different, and one, his slave owner freed him, right? But it took time for the other slave owner, which was his wife, to free her. So what do you think he did? He left since he was free, and he went and indebted himself and got with his wife and his family, so they can be together. So he's back in slavery with his kids, with his wife, because he wants to be there with her, instead of being like, hey, I'm free, I'm gonna go figure things out and come back for you and leave you there. No, it was family. So to your question, or to what readers may be asking, or people out there listening, why should you care? Well, if you don't know your past, how could you know where you don't know where you came from? You don't know
But
what
I'm
it's
not
all
black.
about,
Why should I care about this? Why am I like,
because you don't
I'm
know who
not
you
talking about
are.
myself. No, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about
No, I'm
other
saying that, because
people.
I'm responding because you don't know who you are.
But I'm not black, so why do I need to worry about this?
Because if you are creating you're perpetuating, essentially, right, freedom of speech, justice, fairness, you don't know where your kids are going to end up later on, should you have any kids. You don't know down the road where you're going to need someone. So making sure that there is awareness, fairness, justice across the board for everyone, especially marginalized communities, you're essentially crippling your own future.
Gotcha. I want to answer
Yes.
after Mindy.
And I also have 2 points I wanted to bring up. One is that in this country, as an American, you're making decisions and going forward. And if you know what kinds of things we've done in the past, you'll be better equipped to vote on issues and keep moving forward with that kind of thing. And then also about traumas. When our country went through a trauma, it has to do with that awareness again, knowing that we, as a collective, participated in something that caused trauma on both sides, and then moving forward with that, knowing what kind of lasting effects it has, and then dealing with it, leads you into creating a better life for yourself in the future. And then I thought I wanted to bring up one more thing. Questioning things, like Tina was saying, playing devil's advocate is really important as an adult. I think that goes back to what we had said at the very beginning, that we have these textbooks that are presenting information as if it were completely factual and exactly right. And I think it should be questioned. And I'm coming from an educator standpoint. So that's my perspective, that if that information is a part of our history that's being taught in schools and it's not necessarily an accurate factual perspective, then what else in our textbook is not actual and factual, and what else should be questioned? And who do we, what is the committee, or what is the panel that needs to be put together to make sure that we're doing the right things? What company are we ordering the textbooks from? Who's giving that information to those people, and how is it being portrayed? Because that's being taught to our youth. So going forward, questioning that, I think, is really important. The historical information, the self-awareness about yourself and then your country, and then also dealing with past trauma, so you can move forward and not have to do the same thing.
I love it. I love it, Mindy. So answering the question, I was talking about the top one, Dale, over your head.
Yeah.
So when I think about this, and it just popped into my head, it definitely makes me think of compassion and empathy. So people that may not be Black, and they're like, I don't know why we have to waste time doing this. When it comes to other races and other people, it's very hard to understand what they're going through if you don't know what they went through, right? For you to be compassionate when someone may get mad or angry or upset. Mindy's talking about trauma, right? Trauma and tragedy. What is that, ladies? What is trauma and tragedy together? What is it?
The traumedy.
When
Traumedy.
two
When two
collide.
energies come together, when they
Yeah.
collide, it's a traumedy, and it's life-changing experiences occur. Everyone goes through these things, but I'm gonna say I could be wrong. All right, I think Black people have the worst traumedies. I could be wrong. I'm only speaking from
That's your
experience.
opinion. You're
It's
you're
my
you're you're free
opinion.
to
Yes,
that. That's your
yes,
definite opinion.
yes,
And
yes.
it brings back to play what both of you said, self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Encouraging individuals, encouraging your community to reflect on their own biases, their own privileges, right? You got
Mm.
I mean, you got to call spades a spade. If they,
Mm-hmm.
I'm more equipped for the position. I have all the titles and accolades, and you just came out of college and you ain't got no lick of experience. But they gave you the job and didn't give it to me when I don't know. You
Right,
you you
right.
could you can say, it can be a lot of things, but if it keeps being the same thing, then if it's a duck, it quacks like a duck, look like a duck,
It's
it's
like
a
a duck.
duck.
Oh my gosh.
I said it, Tina.
Yes,
I said it.
yes,
So
yes.
fostering deeper understanding of the role of, promoting racial equality, equity, everywhere and wherever we are is only going to do you, whoever you are that is listening, and whatever your background is only going to do you and your descendants good in the future, right? It's only going to do you good. That's essentially that part of the conversation, understanding your historical trauma. And so let me speak to my African American fellow Afro Latino, Latina, BIPOC community for a little bit. For me, listening and seeing movies or history of all of these things that happened to our ancestors, a part of me, is you get enraged a little bit, right? You get a little bit pissed off, a little bit frustrated, and I'm kind of making it small when you keep on, when you see when you see it, right? And you're like, my God, if that was me, I would have been be dead, because I would have been spoken up, ran away, be starting a coup, all of those things, right? Because that's my mentality today. My mentality today, but what I've seen and what I've experienced. But their mentality back then, nobody was free. Free wasn't a word. slavery, bondage, being bond was the norm, right? That was the norm. And so sometimes because we're coming from all of that emotional trauma historically, you can get enraged and you don't want to go back and you just want to be like, let's just mess them up, and that doesn't help you, right? And it doesn't help me and it doesn't help them, right? So what happens? I had to kind of reframe it and say, okay, it happened. The emancipation happened, civil rights happened. It's that happened, but the only way I can move forward if I understood what they were going through. And that's to one of Tina's question she asked earlier. You got to understand what your fellow communities or have gone through, so that way you can say, because I hear a lot of other counterparts that say, just get over it, just let it go. How can you let it go if it keeps reoccurring today? If history keeps repeating itself? What are you guys' thoughts on anything that I said?
Yes, I totally agree. So as I'm listening slash watching this, okay, so what do we do now? The purpose of this is, like you said, is to bring awareness. And it makes me think something as well. February, we know, is Black History Month. And that's the same time as my biggest trauma. And for the longest time, February, I would be like, Black History Month. And then, 28 days we hear it and then it's gone. Now we have Juneteenth. So for me, what I'm taking away from your show, from this, it's a lifestyle for me because I am a Black woman, and incorporate it into all things in my life. Maybe certain things you just shop at certain Black stores, or maybe you do events, just incorporate mentoring the youth. That's the biggest thing right there. And not make it scary. And some kids, I heard a parent say they don't want their kid to know about slavery, and this is a Black person. I'm like, are you serious? Like, people need to know, like you said, for their history, especially if they're a little Black girl. And what society's out there, what they see just not rattles their brain, but it takes over their brains. So I want to invite anyone who's watching this today, don't keep this just a today thing. Don't keep it just a February thing, right? Even if you just do maybe once a week with your family, once a month, just, hey, did you know? Or like little things like that, because, I slip and I forget and I don't know certain things. And then, there's some Black people that are all year round, Black power, Black power. I love them, but sometimes it's a bit too much. Those people. I love them.
Oh, I think
But having a
Mindy, something.
balance.
I think something
Yeah,
happened with
she was
Mindy. Should be
she
she
was
should be
kind of
back on.
frozen.
Yeah, I think she should be back on. So, offering tips on how to build and maintain those relationships, right? Because we got to move once we went back there and we saw what it was, and okay, now we get a picture and a better idea. Now, how can we heal from those trauma, right? Mindy, I'll put you back up. How can we heal from those trauma? So, share techniques on how becoming a better listener, right? Creating more of a safe space for those dialogues, whether you're in schools or whether at home, to Tina's point, create a space where people feel comfortable enough to be able to share their experiences and how they're feeling with these different perspectives, because that's where we bring in empathy. Empathize the importance emphasizing the importance of listening actively with these kinds of experiences. That's what you can offer, right? Share techniques on how to become a better listener, right? Creating a safe space and keep the dialogue going. Don't get mad and be in your feelings and telling people what to feel. You respectfully be there with them, listen, encourage, right? So that way they can feel more like it's not a we and them, it's a we, all of us, no matter your color, no matter your background, no matter where you're from, it's a we. If your blood is red, and it is, unless you're an alien or something, and my blood is red, we are meant to go through this together. We should. It's better if we all go through it together, right? And Mindy, I think you popped off. You wanted to say anything to any of that?
I was going to add what both of you have written in both of your books, Tina's No More Traumedy book and Dr. Dale's Emotional Healing book, about how that encompasses also forgiveness and how important it is for both the forgiver and the one being forgiven to operate in that forgiveness, and following that comes that empathy. And so when you don't allow yourself to walk through that, then there's that energy of um, unsettledness that still exists. And even if it's in your genetic past, it still needs to be something that you recognize and then consciously do that act of forgiveness. I think it makes a really, and then to be forgiven, both of them really make a big difference in what you were talking about moving forward. So I just wanted to mention that forgiveness part. And I think without the event, without the acknowledgement of the date, and without the look back through history, then you can't even get to the step of forgiveness, because you're just being ignorant of those things.
Mic drop.
I had that was very good, Mindy. There's something I want to
Thank you.
say to everyone who's watching and us as well. You get these people and they'll do these beautiful posts, they'll repost these things, and that's all they're doing. That's cool and all, that's on the surface, but what are we actually doing? So I'm saying this question to myself as well, like, right? Like just working a little bit harder, doing a little bit extra, maybe to inform other people. Right? Because there's so many people in the world that don't know. Just say, hey, did you know? Let's have a little conversation about it. Spreading the word, like Mindy said, like we're all saying right here. And this is all a good thing, right? Yes, it came from a horrible place. We're celebrating the future. That's what I can say, because I don't like celebrating that stuff.
Yes, we're celebrating the future, Tina,
The
and how
forward.
we overcame, because we could have stayed in bond. I mean, it could have not happened, right?
Yes.
It could have
So
not happened, Tina. Then it would be a totally different conversation, or would it even be a conversation at all?
Exactly. So I want each and every one of us today, not just to post it. I may post something, I may not, I don't know, but actually doing something. So I'm thinking of what am I going to do in celebration of our wonderful future to, commemorate our ancestors.
I love that, to
So,
celebrate the
yeah,
forward momentum, the progress,
yeah,
the where you were and where you've come and where you're going. For sure.
100%. So let's move a little bit to promoting social justice, to Tina's point. So emotional regulation. How do we move past difficult conversations? Discuss how managing your emotion can lead to more effective activism and advocacy. So if you see some injustice being happen right in front of you, that's your opportunity to do something or say something about it, right? um i
Example.
I don't get the thing with, you see, the thank God there were people there, I guess, with the George Floyd situation, but I don't, knowing Dale, I would have jumped in there and been like, what the hell are you doing, really? You know what I mean? That would have been me, but everybody is different. But let's say, for example, you're in the workplace and you hear somebody saying something that doesn't is not cool. Like, what are you doing sitting there? That's not for your kind. What do you mean by that? And why are you talking to him like that? Why are you talking to her like that? That's your opportunity to step up and speak up, right? Don't hear it, he's not talking to me, walk away. Maybe that person just started the other day. They don't have the voice. Maybe you can lend your voice. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think your teachings on emotional intelligence make a really big difference, and I think it is something that we should be learning in school. I think there are some schools that do things like that and talk about emotional health and mental health, but in those types of situations, it's easy for an offense to happen, and then for there to be a defense, and then opposing offense, and then it's a banter back and forth, and it can escalate and escalate. And so I think for us to make sure that we are being self-aware and learning those strategies on how to deal with offenses and how to speak where the other person can hear, because if you speak defensively, sometimes that other person can't hear what's being said, and then they're taking offense and it's going back and forth. So to have that um, operation of educating someone come out of empathy and love, and with the mindset of growing and learning, I think makes a really big difference. Otherwise, I think it just can turn into an even worse situation because a lot of people operate off assumptions that aren't accurate completely.
Love this, Dale. This is definitely a movement. I had a
Hmm.
conversation this morning with a woman. Her name is Audra. I remember I used to work with her years ago with Arbonne, and she works with children, and she has like 115K followers on Instagram. And all she does is talk about what she does. She created a program for, it's pretty much like social emotional learning, but it's like with the brain, how children work. And she's talking about the hippopotamus, and the blah, 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 and the blah, blah, blah.
The amygdala. Amygdala.
And the hippocampus, all that stuff. But anyway, as Mindy was saying, as an adult, all right, and I've done a lot of trainings and I've been working with Dale. For me, it's still challenging sometimes to control my feelings, to control how I am. I'm glad that I keep the circle around me strong. So it's like, Tina, check yourself. So how do we fix this? How do we correct this? By supporting one another. Yes, therapy helps, but not everyone has this, right? Dale, if you don't know, and Mindy, I'm working on this curriculum. Actually, the curriculum's done. This woman I'm speaking with, I'm like, girl, I want your information. She has created a program, ladies, that is 4 different levels of how you're feeling. This is for children. I'm sure adults can use it. And she's like, at a level 5, how are you feeling? Level 5, you're here, you're happy. And then level 4, and then she goes all the way down to 1. And she says, a school teacher, it's all like knowledge, teaching, right? So as a school teacher, I'm going to ask Mindy because she may not know. You have a student in your class, and they start like going like this, and you're teaching the lesson. And do you pick on the students like this or the students like this? What would you say, Mindy? I'm just curious.
That is loaded questions, Tina, because it really
Well,
depends. And you're right. You have to figure out like, why is the person's head down? Is it something that happened? Are they dealing with something? Or is it that they just got disengaged and you're trying to bring them back into the conversation or what's
exactly,
going on?
exactly. Right where you are. And she said the average teacher would call on the student that's like this because the teacher's trying to get their attention. The person's like this. The teacher doesn't need to get that person's attention, but the student's like this. So she said, what happens? The hippopotamus, and in the brain. All right.
The amygdala.
Whatever. That's why I got the doctors on the other end. But anyway, when the teacher calls on the student that's like this, the student starts, they get like scared. They get that trauma that you give it in their head. And then the teacher starts asking more. And then the kid gets, it's like that could be a trauma for a kid. So she's sharing these different levels. She created this program. I'm like, girl, let's connect. Let's get this together because she worked with the parents to teach the parents how to work with the kids. Where I'm on the end talking to the kids how to create your emotions. So it's
Mm-hmm.
all like this, right? My sister's husband, he's a teacher, social emotional learning. He shared that with me. He's talking about COVID, how during COVID kids were stuck in the house, and now it's like a whole thing. I'm gonna stop my mouth because I'm just going and going. But a change gonna come. We need a change, right? It's got to start. That was a song. You guys remember that song?
Of
Change
course.
won't come. Anyway, throwing it over to you, Dale.
Of course. Maintaining composure in challenging conversations. Stina started at the top of her conversation with her
Yes,
what she said
celebrate
that
slavery. Who wants to celebrate slavery? Okay, maybe it's the end of slavery. But hey, I'm a hush. I'm a hush. I'm a hush.
challenging conversation in using one's emotional energy to drive a positive change. So even when you're at home, all of that rage, all of that anger, all of that frustration that you have, it's not because of what people around you are doing. It's coming from somewhere. So back to the origin of this conversation, and the origin of all of our what we're saying at the root is that emotional trauma. There's trauma there, right? And if you don't talk to someone, if you don't have a community, if you're not educating yourself in spaces like this, you won't know. You will think that because your kids are in the room jumping up on the bed is what pissed you off. When in reality, you're not pissed off about that at all. You're pissed off that there are other things that are really going on, but you won't know these things until you ask yourself the questions. You have to go deeper than what you actually are experiencing, and the external part of you. It's the internal side of you that you have to kind of ask yourself these questions, right? And that's where emotional intelligence comes in. right? So let's move down to fostering resilience and hope, right? Um, eh, they're encourage a forward-looking perspective, right? And Tina mentioned this. This is a movement. Social emotional learning for kids, emotional intelligence for the entire gosh darn world. Because we all
Darn
have
it.
because we all are experiencing trauma trauma is not only an accident, is not only suffering something major. Small trauma, little trauma is trauma. And what happens
Exactly.
with that? Trauma is trauma, right, Tina? Tina is the queen of trauma, right? Tina, you want to tell us a little bit more about that and how it originates and how it can exemplify in your day to day?
Yes, yes. So first of all, Dale, I think of it two ways. You have the trauma, and then you have the tragedy. Tragedy is something huge, like 9/11, like things like that. But if we just talk about the little traumas, I used to be small minded and compare traumas. Like my trauma was bigger than your trauma, and I've gone through this. You don't want to compare because, again, you don't know what's happening in someone's back channel. It's 7 generations. My grandfather could have been, I'm sorry, my great 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 grandfather could have been beaten more than your great. No, we can't compare that. So I think of it even smaller than that, Dale. Someone said to me at 2 years old, they were lost in a grocery store. They couldn't find their parents. That right there is traumatic. It's a feeling in the heart. And so we don't want to compare them. And like the teachers, like she said in school, the students there, how embarrassing was it? Girl, when I was in 8th grade, I remember this like yesterday. My aunt did my hair in a beehive. If you ever gotten a weave, lady, you know they did that beehive. But that's how she braided my hair. She braided it in this circle. And that was it. My aunt Donna, that was it. She was so proud of herself. I had to go to school like that. I was so embarrassed. I had a hat on. I didn't want to take the hat on. You know, when you go in the back of the room, you take your coat off. I stayed in the closet. Tina, come sit down. I sat down with my hat on. Take your hat off. Guess what? Nobody laughed at me. Nobody said anything to me. It was all in my head. My entire life, I've had these black girl hair. That was a trauma for me, right? So it could be your hair, it could be your weight, your skin color, your complexion. So we have to really empathize with people and watch what we say, right? I do it all the time. Sometimes you're talking about yourself to yourself. I used to always say this, and sometimes I do, I gotta admit. Like, I'm as big as a whale, or my lips look like this. You never want to talk negative about yourself. And a lot of my friends would tell me, Dale, when I, was at my eyes away, I'm like, I gained like 10 pounds. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so fat. And they're like, girl, okay, they didn't say that. But me saying that I'm big and they're like way bigger made them feel worse, right? Like this person can be 50, 60, 80, 100 pounds overweight. Here, I'm complaining about that 10 pounds. That's traumatic for me. It may not be traumatic for you. Do you understand? Throwing it
A
over to you,
hundred
Dale.
percent. Mindy, you want to add to any of that?
I really appreciate the way Tina was talking about that trauma because I think when you start out with something that has happened to you and then you go into other situations, that emotion can take over, even though, like you said, someone can just say something to you and you jump out and you're just outraged, but really it's because of this other thing that's back here. And the thing that, like Tina was saying, the smaller tragedy that's in front of you didn't need to be throwing you off your whole game. And so I think that's where that self-awareness comes in so important, where if you wake up in your morning and you're like, okay, I got this thing in the pit of my chest, or I have this, just taking mental, physical inventory of what's going on and recognizing that before you go forward. I know I've had many conversations with people where I'm like, hey, look, I'm um, coming to you from this lens today because I got this thing going on. So
I love
I
that.
apologize that I might have, jumped off the deep end because of something that you said, but really it has nothing to do with what you said. It's this other thing that's on my shoulders. May or may
A
not want to talk
hundred
about
percent.
that. So when you're talking to kids, they don't necessarily have those tools. That's what I was talking about, like what you're teaching and what Tina's teaching. They need to know, because then they're flying off. And then if you say something else that offends me even more, and then I will say something back that offends you, then the whole argument is about this surface thing that really is not what the argument is about. It's really this trauma and dealing with that. And so I think that's when you take your focus off of that and you take inventory of where you are, and then you shift and you're looking toward where you want to go in the future. Like what Tina was saying at the beginning, that we're not necessarily celebrating what happened in the past. We are taking account of what happened. We are acknowledging it. We're dealing with whatever happened. And now we're looking toward the future to see how we can go forward and not make the same mistakes again, and not offend the people, and be empathetic about what happened, and move forward in love, so that everyone can have a chance at making that progress and moving it. Because as humans, that's what we really want. That's that state of flow, that moving forward. That's so important and so valuable, and it really highlights the benefit of all of us, for real.
Mindy, can you explain what you
100%.
talked about? I got it, but I want to get it all the way. When you said you're talking to someone and you say, I'm sharing this from a lens of
the thing that I'm dealing with. So my most recent conversation was with someone, and they came in, and everything that they were saying was rubbing me the wrong way. Just everything that we're saying. And then I had to stop myself and say, what makes this day different from another day? This person that usually doesn't offend me in such a way. And I'm like, what's going on with me? Because it's not anything that they're really doing. And I was like, oh, I'm worried about a financial thing.
Gotcha.
And so then I had to share with that person, I didn't have to go into details about it, but just say, hey, look, I'm dealing with this thing. I'm sorry, like that. Does that make more sense?
Perfectly said.
It does. I did that I do that sometimes. Like
You're not the only one, Tina. You're not the only one. I recently had a friend of mine recently had someone that passed away, and we were discussing a matter, and I don't know how it escalated, but that person started yelling. They started saying very, very belligerent words, and it made I said, I didn't respond. I was like, everything
Where's
okay?
this coming from? Yeah.
Yeah. And they kept on ranting and going crazy or saying whatever they were saying. And I said, okay, how about we pick this up later? Right? I said, how about we pick this up later? And the later for me was going to be, I'm going to wait until a week or so for that person to calm down, because I know they just been through a grief. They went just been through a loss, right? So what happened? That person came back way before a week. It was like 1 or 2 days. And they said, hey, I said what I said because I'm dealing with this. This is really, I knew that. But the mindset that that person was in at that point in time, because I love them to death, I'm not going to harp on them and make the situation worse. You see what I'm saying? I knew it was time for me to back away and be like, okay, let's just pick this up later, okay? Instead of going, mouth for mouth, arguing back and forth, it's going to make the situation worse, right?
Dale,
so emotional intelligence gives you those tools to say, let me give him his space. Let me be empathetic and just see it from her perspective, and not be about just me getting what I want and just me, and saying what I have to say off my chest, when that's not the point. Simon Sinek said, the point of communication is not saying what you have to say out of your mouth, but it's ensuring that the person understood what you meant, right? Because if you don't understand what you mean,
I want to add on just a little bit to what you said from the other side of that, Dale. Because I am that person, I'm that feeling person, right? If I feel it, it's coming out of my mouth. I try hard to keep it in. It's like I'm fighting sometimes with my mouth. And someone said to me, sometimes in life, Tina, especially if it involves other people, right? You have to wait 24 hours before you say something. Sometimes I have to wait 48 hours and be like, okay, did I really want this? Do I really? Like sometimes you say, I don't want to talk to you ever again. But it's like you're mad and angry, but what's underneath that anger is hurt, right? Most people are hurt. There's that song, hurt people. It's a defense mechanism that we're using. So pause. As Dale would say, I love your pulse, right? Someone said to me, Tina, are you, what's the thing they asked me? Are you Are you hale? Are you
Halt.
hungry? And
Halt.
they said, Tina,
Mm.
that someone actually said that to me, Tina. Tina, are you halt? Are you halt, Tina? And I was like, well, I am hungry. I am angry. I am lonely. Yes, I am halt. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye. I trained them
And
well,
that's
right?
good. That's where emotional self-awareness comes into play, right? Mindy, to back to the original. And self-awareness is the first point of emotional intelligence. Is self-awareness, then self-regulation. Self-awareness says figure out your stuff, make sure that you're good mentally, emotionally, all the beings, all the parts of you before you go and tackle somebody else. Before you go, even in the workplace, you know that you didn't have a good night before you come into work in the morning, and you and your husband had a big argument the night before. You wake up, Mindy said, you wake up and you're like, you just feel, you don't feel good. You know, you're pissed off. You don't want to see nobody, you want to talk to anybody. You go to work, and now you have employees that report to you, and the first thing they say to you is good morning. Da, 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 da. You're like, girl, go get out of my way. Out, don't talk to me.
Dale,
And
Dale, can
or
I?
you have to address an evaluation on someone. Maybe today's not a good day for you to do that. Maybe you should do that evaluation another day when you are in a better
Mhm.
mood, because you're going to affect an employee's, rating. You're going to affect their pocket, right? Their bonuses or whatever, right? So that's
Mhm.
where emotional intelligence is a lifeline for leaders, for people at home screaming at your kids. Why are you screaming at your kids? Because there's traffic? Well, there's traffic every day. At this point, you should be used to it, right? Or plan accordingly, right? Put things in place. Like, I ain't got a problem with traffic because I listen to music. I talk to all the people I need to talk to before I get home. Like, I
Di-
create ways so that way I come in when I get home, I'm in a better state of mind because I already put things in the car, food and all this stuff. I am set.
Mhm.
I love
Tina
it.
came into
Mhm.
my
Dale,
car when she was here in Florida, and there was crackers. Like, I got food. Like, you ain't gonna catch me on a bad day. Food.
I love it. Dale, I want to tap into that two ways. The first way you said, that person that goes into work all upset, morning and evening rituals, right? Before you even look at the world, before you get out of bed, pour into yourself, tap into yourself first. So you're not coming out the gate like a banshee, all right? Like, hello, nobody wants that negative, ugly, yucky energy, right? I recently got a
Nobody.
morning, nobody wants it. It's not sexy. That's not cute. We're about that soft life, right? So pour into yourself first. The second thing I want to add, Dale, is when you're speaking to someone first thing in the morning. Me, I'm up at 4 o'clock. My daughter lives in California. I'm like by 5, 6, I'm on. I'm popping. I'm like, hey. And she would say, because I text her at like 10, that's 7 o'clock in the morning, her time. She's like, Mom, you overwhelm me in the morning. You give me too much stuff. But also think about how you're reacting to a person in the morning. Are you sending them, you didn't call me last night. You didn't do that. Hello, who wants to wake she? Because I'd send her some kind of, maybe speaking from experience. So now, before I send those morning texts, someone wants to wake up. Maybe you send them a smiley face. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm saying hello. Did you know yesterday you were supposed to send me whatever and you didn't? Leading with love, right? I just wanted
Yes.
to add that.
Yes. And I love what
Mindy,
you're
what do you
saying,
want to add
Tina,
to
about
that?
that routine, that morning routine, or whatever it is that you do to make sure that you're filling your own cup, that you are that you are emotionally healthy, and fitness and nutrition and all that stuff, that you're that and even the mind, that you are honed in on what it is that your core values are, and that you're paying attention to making sure that you're coming from that place. And that morning routine is a great way to do it, with all the things that you think are important, that make sure that you get covered on your own by yourself before you start the day. And then also, I think that our actions really lead before our conversation does. And so if we're trying to be um, an educational force or a motivational force or inspiring, we really have to make sure that and take stock of what we're doing to make sure that it backs up what we're trying to educate about. Because especially your family, if you're saying, okay, this and this, and trying to teach them about something that you think is important, especially when it comes to history, but then they look at you and how you're moving through the day and how you're progressing, they're not going to be able to match up this thing that you're trying to push forward and where you're headed. So I think that that's how you do that with that routine, making sure that you're operating by your core values and going where you think is valuable to go, and then also um, carrying it out through the rest of the day. Because I think, like Dale was saying, as a leader, um, we have to make sure that if we roll out of bed and this is a day where we're concerned about something, or maybe we had a loss and we're suffering with grief or whatever it is, that we find a way to ask for support from the people at work and be vulnerable um, and do whatever it is to help us get through those things with meditation or with um, education, seeking counseling, or whatever it is, so that we can be those examples. Because so many people have that fixed mindset they're not even going to see from our perspective in the first place, and then there are a lot of people that are in different levels in that growth mindset, and they are able to receive, but they just don't know what the next step is. And so by being that example, I think makes a huge difference too.
100%. 100%, Mindy. Oh my goodness, we're getting ready to wrap up here. What is the name? Eckhart Tolle said, "Awareness is the greatest agent for change." Awareness is the greatest agent for change.
Awareness
So,
is the greatest agent for change. I love that.
awareness is the greatest agent for change. Um, you know who you are. You know what you're doing. Whoever you are, whatever you're doing. Let these conversations get your wheels in your mind, start thinking, start trying to figure out how can you make your your history be better than the way you found it. You want to create a greater history for your kids, for your family that is coming behind. And the only way that can happen is if you start making the change today in your community. Don't depend on those leaders and government, and it starts with you and with me. What is it that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? To ensure that you are healing yourself. And the best way you can start that is to heal yourself. Heal yourself before you start pointing fingers at everybody else. Both all of us here on this platform, Tina, Mindy, and myself, and hopefully you, we have started our healing and are still in the process of our healing journey, right? That self-discovery, that awareness, that looking in to look out, right? Not out in. It starts inside here. And you got to start that work with yourself. So, ladies, before we get out of here, I want to ask you the question: what is your one mission that you are doing, making the world a better place? What is it that maybe that this conversation changed today? You're like, I'm gonna add this, or I'm gonna take away this. What is that one thing for you? And also let people know how they can reach you guys.
I'll let you go first, Mindy.
Okay, my biggest mission really is those two things combined, to make an impact in the with the intent of love, and then to also incorporate creativity in that. I think that's my biggest. It's both a talent and an interest in those ways, and I think that visually doing those things really does help people to understand in a different way that they might not have recognized before. And then I can be reached on Instagram. I think it's the best way. That's where I'm at almost every day. So and my Instagram is just Mindy Staley. It's my name, but then I put an extra Y because there must be some other Mindy Staley out there.
They are, Mindy. They are. So, Mindy, you know what I ran into the other day? I was doing some packing and I ran into my worry monster.
I love
I ran
that.
into it.
I love
Tina,
that.
remember that?
Yes, I do. She had to do it
Yeah.
again because I wasn't able to do the warrior or whatever that was monster. That was a cool exercise. Yeah, we do.
What would your, for me, it was worried, and, Mindy kind of did up, I think it was with Tina, one of the events that she was having, and Mindy made us do as part of her section, her segment was, what does your worry or painful monster look like? And I did my monster, and he was a green little ugly thing, right? And it helped because he's no longer, worry is not one of my major issues that I'm tackling right
Oh,
now.
Oh, I
So it
love that.
definitely
I
helped. It's
love
to
that.
put a face to it and like, oh, I can tear you up in pieces and do anything I want with you. Oh,
Hmm. And recognizing that
so
you're
it
the
was
one in
like a
control,
sign,
and
like
so
you're worrying
hmm
because you're choosing to worry, right? You can
I
defeat
love
that.
it.
You can
yeah,
overcome that. So,
reframing
Tina,
it.
I'm
Yeah,
passing it to
exactly.
you.
Yes, passing it to me. I wasn't able to do the war whatever monster because at that particular event I was doing everything and I needed a
Hmm.
break. So Mindy, if you're available next Saturday, Sunday, or this Sunday, I'm doing a virtual vision board event. I would love for you to redo the vision monster worry,
Awesome.
whatever it
Okay,
was,
that sounds
again.
great. Yeah.
But Dale, loving this. I'm so proud of the growth in you, Dale. It's like, oh, I'm just like
Me
a
too.
proud mama watching you right here. Mission. What is my mission? My mission has been the same for a long time to just change the world. I know it sounds really cheesy, really corny, but for me, it's because I have to make the death of my son mean something, like for me to wake up in the morning. Otherwise, I would be laying in bed every day from all the crap that's happened in my life. So I need a reason to get up. And my reason is to be that ripple effect to affect one person that's going to affect another person. Like Dale came with me. Now Dale's doing her little ripple around, and same thing with Mindy. So that's my mission, is to transform the world one person at a time. And I'm already doing stuff. I'm doing a lot of stuff, but we can always do more, right? So for me, the takeaway I got from this is the quality, opening my eyes like this instead of like this, just opening it a bit wider. Because I was looking at the link on LinkedIn and I was like, I love Mindy like cook food, like some chocolate cake, but why we got a white girl on Juneteenth? Like, really? I even text
See,
Renee. I was
that
like, should I
authenticity
ask?
and that vulnerability is what makes you an amazing person.
See, I texted Renee. I was like, should I say something to Dale? Because Dale and I kind of get into it every now and again, but in a loving way. I was like, I don't even know if I can ask Dale because, she's so up here in the social emotional intelligence. And, she makes me feel like I'm Boo Boo the Fool down here. So I don't even know if I can ask
Tina,
her.
how you
But
gonna say that live?
it's the truth, though. I'm like, I don't think I can ask Dale this question. Anyway, back to the point. Takeaway. The takeaway I got from this event is to really open my lens a lot more when it comes to things. And the fact that everyone needs help. I still need help, and I've done a lot of work, guys. Dale and I are putting together a retreat for 7 people. That's it. It's happening in November. If you're watching this and you want like a major change in your life, connect to us. Maybe you don't have any money. Follow us on YouTube. You can find me everywhere. I am Stars Tina with a Z. Stars because I love the stars. I think for me, the stars, Dale, at night, it's dark, it's scary, it's harsh. But then when you look at the stars, it's bright, right? And we all have to go through some type of darkness in our life. And this girl's going to do a lot of freaking darkness. That's why I love the stars. So find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, now TikTok. You see me on TikTok, Dale? I'm trying my TikTok, baby. Hey, I'm going to be doing dances on TikTok soon. Anyway, I
You're doing
am,
dances already on Instagram.
I'm trying. Girl, anyway, I was about to say something else. So that's where you can find me. I'm so grateful for this space. Happy Juneteenth celebration moving forward. I'm going to say it that way. And I hope we've affected one person. I think we affected at least one person in this live today, Dale. So
Yeah, even if
thank
that
you
one
for this.
person is me, you guys have done it. I
I
appreciate each and
wonderful.
every single one of you. I definitely
Appreciate
do
you
want
guys
to
too.
leave us with an I am affirmation as we leave this space. I am a catalyst for positive change, embracing empathy, awareness, and resilience to create a more inclusive and just world. That's for you, that's for me, because we are every day becoming a catalyst, right? We're embracing change, though it's not easy. We're becoming more aware, making sure that we're out there training, helping, bettering ourselves, continuous learning. We're resilient, we're strong. We do hard things. Our ancestors did it, and we can do even more, right? And our history definitely doesn't stop here. It has so much more to go, and it's going to continue, right? Because you and I are here. We're going to be inclusive, and we're going to create a more just world for the people coming behind us, right? And like I always end all of my lives, that feeling that you have when everything just feels right, everybody's in the right place, you're not worrying about anything, everybody's doing what they have to do, you don't have to worry about tomorrow, everything is great, everything is flowing like a feather in the air. That, my friend, that feeling is called love. I challenge you to give it
Oh!
to everybody today.
Can you email? Can you text that to me, girl? I like that. I want to put it in my bathroom. I like that. That was so beautiful. I'm gonna cry. So beautiful. I love you. I got a client now. I gotta go.
Bye, you
Peace.
guys. Thank you.
Bye.
See you guys next week.
See you. See ya.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you so much,
Thank
Tina.
you. Thank you.
See ya. See ya.